Participants, welcome to the second day of AVLOKAN, International Research Summit. We are going to begin as per the schedule. Request you to stay tuned with us. Thank you. Participants, welcome to the second day of AVLOKAN, the International Research Summit. Requesting all of you connected through Zoom and Facebook Live to stay tuned with us. We are going to begin as per the schedule. Thank you.
evening, sir.
Dear participants, we have with us joined in our eminent speaker of the session, Mr. Arup Chatterjee. Thanks for joining in, sir. Very warm welcome to you. Sir, you need to unmute yourself.
So am I audible and am I visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
You are visible, sir. Again, you have got muted, so you can unmute yourself.
Again? Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir. It's fine now.
Okay, thank you. So good, but there is a possibility because of bad weather, there might be some issues. So
No
just
worries, sir.
in case that happens.
No problem, sir.
Okay.
We'll begin sharp at 7:30 as per schedule, sir.
Okay.
So would you like to put the Zoom background, which I sent to you, if possible?
The one which you sent me, I tried, but the sites were getting cut. So
No
that's
worries.
why.
No problem, sir. No problem. Leave it.
So I thought it will look a bit odd because if only
sir. Yes.
AIN was visible and all.
Sure.
So
Absolutely, sir. And it is really great that you are already on time and, in fact, before time. And all of us, we've been just waiting for you, waiting for your session. And we simply wish like the most of the participants at the time they join in, and most of them can get benefited out of it. So we are just simply going to wait for a few minutes for them to join in, and then we are going to get started. So.
no issues. Please take your time. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you, sir. I hope, sir, you are going to stay with us for all upcoming 7 days.
I will try. The sessions are interesting. I was there yesterday.
Yes, sir.
So let me see. Because
Yes.
it's a bit late here, but it's okay for me. At least it doesn't interfere with my office work. So
Right, sir. Right. Yes, sir. For tomorrow, we have with us Nobel laureate Professor Mohammad Yunus as our chief guest.
mhm.
And he is going to talk on the topic social responsibility with ethical leadership, which is the theme of the summit. And along with him, there is also Mr. P.K. Gupta, who is Global CTO and Global Architects Lead. Global Alliances for Dell EMC, and he will be talking about emerging technology trends in various industries, research and career opportunities in data era. So I feel like there is going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of engagement for all of us, for all our participants. And the great thing is that it is going to be following your session. So there's so much to take back to home to all of our participants.
Oh yeah, the world is full of opportunities and possibilities, and it's good to interact with young minds. Professor, our late President Kalam used to say the ignited minds. So the
Absolutely,
ignited
sir.
minds are the ones who will do wonders, and I have a
Absolutely.
lot of hope in them.
Absolutely, sir. Well, dear participants, we are just going to follow our schedule as per the time. We are going to start with the session. Until then, I can take you through the entire journey of these 9 days, which started from yesterday. We had wonderful sessions by Dr. Roger Sam Smith and Dr. Chinraj Roychand. Today we have with us our eminent speakers, Mr. Arup Kumar Chatterjee and Dr. Raj Singh. For tomorrow, as I already introduced to them, this is Professor Mohammad Yunus as our chief guest and Mr. P.K. Gupta, who is going to talk on diverse topics. After that, on 5th of August, we have with us Dr. Dinesh Nilkant, and he's going to speak on the topic role of social responsibility in networking. It is going to be followed by the session by Ms. Amita Paul, who is going to confer her views on the topic, should you focus on your strengths or improve your weak points? Next day, that is on 6th of August, we have with us Ms. Nidhi Vadera. She is a sales coach, business consultant, and an author as well. She is going to talk on the topic, the inverted funnel. It is going to be followed by Professor V. Ranganathan, retired RBI chair and professor of IIM Bangalore, and he is going to talk about the topic redefining social responsibility and ethics. And there's lots more even after that. For 3 days, we have track presentations for paper presentations as well as case study presentations. And after those 3 days, we have the D day, the final day, that is on 10th of August. We have with us Dr. Philip Kotler as our chief guest, who is, of course, he does not require any introduction. All of us are a great fan of this particular legend, and he is known as the father of modern marketing. And he is going to confer his views on the topic evolution of marketing. And the session is going to begin sharp at 7 p.m. So I hope that you definitely have lots of things to explore, lots of topics to go through, and so much to take back after these sessions. I again request all our participants to stay tuned with us who are connected through Zoom and Facebook Live. We are just going to begin as per our schedule. Participants, we have with us joined in our Vice Chancellor, Sir, Dr. Raj Singh. Thanks for joining in, sir. A very warm welcome to you.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for joining in, sir.
Has Arup joined?
Yes, sir. Arup sir is already here.
Good evening. I have joined. How are you?
Good evening. Nice to see you, Arup. How are you?
I am fine. Nice to see you and connect after a while. Yeah.
It's not a while. I think good 2 decades or more.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's almost 2 decades I'm out of India, so that's also.
Yes. But thank you so much, Arup, for consenting to be with us today.
No, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
We need to thank VC sir for that he helped us in connecting with you. So we are grateful to sir for that.
No, Dr. Varsha, you and your students are absolutely fabulous. I think it's their charm which has attracted all these speakers more than anything else. Keep up the good work. I'm so
Yes,
proud
sir.
of the students. In fact, they've been working so hard.
Yes, sir. The entire faculty team, students, they are working so hard every day. I don't think so. Like from 2 days, they.
Of course, you
have-
all have been guiding them, but I'll give more credit to the students.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. I think few of them are here only. Yeah.
Well, dear participants, we are going to begin as per the schedule. I request all of you who are connected through Zoom and Facebook Live to stay tuned with us.
Good evening, Arup sir. Good evening, Raj sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Participants, a very warm welcome to you all. Thanks for joining in. I request all of you to stay with us for upcoming 7 days for lots more to explore and learn from our eminent speakers. For tomorrow, day 3, we have with us the legendary speakers, Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus, as our chief guest, conferring his views on the topic social responsibility with ethical leadership, and Mr. P.K. Gupta, global CTO and global architects lead, Global Alliances for Dell EMC, delivering his talk on the topic Emerging Technology Trends in Various Industries, Research and Career Opportunities in Data Era. For all participants, we are going to begin sharp at 7:30 p.m. Thanks for your patient presence.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, Varsha.
Very good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, Arup sir.
Good evening.
Dear all, we are going to begin sharp at 7:30 p.m. Requesting all of you connected through Zoom and Facebook Live to stay tuned with us. Thank you. Participants, the wait is about to get over and we are going to begin just in a couple of minutes. Thanks for your patient presence. The participants we have with us joined in our director, Dr. Dinesh Nilkan. Welcome to the event, sir. Thank you so much for presiding over this evening.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
VC sir has joined.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, sir.
So our speaker, Mr. Arup Chatterjee, also has joined.
Mr. Arup Chatterjee, good evening, sir.
Good evening very much.
Namaste, namaste.
Namaste.
VC sir, namaste.
Namaste,
evening.
Namaste, Doctor. Namaste, good evening.
Dear participants, we are going to begin in next 2 minutes. Thanks for your patient presence.
Shiva, you can start.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Very good evening, dear participants, delegates, and speakers. Welcome to the second day of International Research Summit AVLOKAN on redefining social responsibility with ethical leadership, organized by Vidyanidhi, Student Research and Development Cell in association with Gyanidhi, Faculty Research Cell of Center for Management Studies, Jain University. We began with this event yesterday with your immense support and presence, the desire to continue this journey for upcoming days with the same zeal and zest. Thanks once again to all of you joining in and making this summit fruitful to all of us. And on this note, without any further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Sayyada Shifa to introduce our first speaker of the session. Over to Ms. Shifa.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our first keynote speaker of the session, Mr. Arup Chatterjee. Mr. Arup Chatterjee is a principal financial sector specialist at the Asian Development Bank, responsible for leading financial sector development initiatives and providing operational support in financial sector reform and development, regulatory and supervisory oversight, architecture, insurance, and fintech. He has earlier served with the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, and the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. An alumnus of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Delhi University. Mr. Arop is an active blogger and regularly contributes to newspapers and journals on contemporary issues or topics. With immense honor and respect, I welcome Mr. Arop Chatterjee to address the participants and attendees. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sayeda. Chancellor Dr. Chenraj Roychand, Pro-Chancellor Dr. Sundarajan, Vice-Chancellor Raj Singh, Director Dinesh Nilkant, Professor Sunita Baisakhi, Vaishnavi, Dr. Varsha Agarwal, Excellencies, distinguished guests, esteemed members of the faculty, students of Jain University, and friends. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be invited at the International Research Summit AVLOKAN. The literal meaning of AVLOKAN is the art of self-realization. It is in this quest for inquiring or seeking the true being of self that I selected the topic of my address as for doing business with heart and soul, women need to be put ahead of men. Though my background is finance, I intentionally thought of taking a different track. I hope today's interaction will add to the body of discussion on this theme of this year's summit, which is redefining social responsibilities and ethical leadership. I would also like to add a disclaimer that the views expressed here are personal and doesn't convey the views of the organization where I work. So, dear friends, we all know women are better off today. They are moving into jobs that used to be done by men. Those in India know the stories in the Olympics. The women are ahead of the men. Even those women working in factories or sweatshops have experienced both the liberating or the empowering impact of earning a regular wage. They have more choice and independence than if they had remained at home. However, the progress in terms of gender equality remains uneven. The sad reality is that girls and women worldwide continue to face the daily indignities of discrimination, harassment, and too often violence. And regardless of where one looks, women bear most of the responsibility for holding societies together, and COVID has demonstrated that amply, be it at home, in healthcare, as frontliners, at school, or in caring for the elderly. They are everywhere. In many countries, women perform these tasks without pay, and we know about India very much. Yet, even when professionals carry out the work, even in countries which are relatively developed or middle income, they tend to be dominated by women. The professions which are dominated by women, they are again denied equal opportunities. So, dear friends, picture a woman living in an underdeveloped country, and this is something very easy for people who come from India. She's poor, as is her family and other women in her village. She has 5 kids, but also works in the fields throughout the day. She does the same heavy lifting like a man, but her pay at the end of the day is significantly lighter. At home, she's also responsible for feeding her family. She cooks on an indoor charcoal stove, so her exhaustion mixed with fumes is slowly killing her, though I understand in India with gas connections and all, this is being ameliorated, but still in many other parts of the globe, this is not happening. Yet these women, they feel like a victim. They have an excellent idea for a business that will benefit families like theirs. Perhaps it's a solar cooker or a mom and pop store, or as Chancellor Roy Chand mentioned yesterday a smartphone which they might be aspiring for, but all her money currently goes towards survival. So the situation is the reality for millions of women in the world. The COVID-19 crisis has thrown these gender-based differences into even more sharper relief. Yet we still hear things like, especially from men, what does gender have to do with us? Well, it is everything. Lowering gender inequality by 10 percentage points can boost growth by 2 percentage points over 5 years. But by not factoring women and supporting their engagement with the economy and society, we are underachieving sustainable development. And that is to the detriment of the individuals, the households, the families, and the nations. And this is at a time when we need to overachieve and overachieve fast. We need this growth boost to support the post-pandemic recovery. By bringing women into the fold, the economy can benefit from their talents, their skills, their unique perspectives and ideas. We all have mothers, daughters, sisters, grandmothers at home. We have friends in our network, and they can all add value to what I'm saying. This diversity should boost productivity and lead to enhanced welfare for all. This beauty, this is that men need not lose out. There is nothing for men to lose in this. Yesterday, again, I am referring to Chancellor Roy Chand, whose speech provides a segue to what I am speaking. He was talking about creating entrepreneurs, the 1 millionaire entrepreneurs. And if there are two, the husband and wife in a family who are having 1 million each, you imagine how the family can multiply. Generally, we talk of 1 and 1 as 11, but on a very, very conservative scale, 1 and 1 can make 2, and that also is a huge impact and a huge improvement. So, dear friends, proponents of the argument that women are taking over the world at work need only to be known with a better perception of knowns and unknowns. And I will try to frame my discussion, frame my talk around these knowns and unknowns. And when you talk of the knowns and unknowns, we are reminded of Donald Rumsfeld, the former US Secretary of Defense. At a press briefing in 2002 on the Iraq war, he said, and I quote, "There are known knowns, there are things we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we know we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know, we don't know." This is a little bit of an oxymoron, but maybe when you sit back and listen at leisure, you will be able to fathom the depth of this statement. And then Slavoj Žižek, another philosopher from Slovenia, he had a missing fourth category, which is the unknown knowns, the things which we intentionally refuse to acknowledge that we know. So this is how the human mindset or the human mind works. And these 4 concepts of known and unknown that Rumsfeld applied to national security also apply to the world of business in general and women in particular. Each of these 4 items or 4 concepts is associated with unique understanding and awareness of the opportunities and risks in any given situation, and overcoming barriers in terms of access to finance, access to market, access to services, access to social security, and so on. So let me dwell a little bit more on these. Known unknowns are the things you are aware of and understand. Example would be women involved in doing repetitive tasks. We know that's what they do. And they are generally in slow-paced corporate jobs. Something which is known is, say, for becoming an entrepreneur, you need to access loans and you can approach a bank. But again, that is only for a few. Not everybody has access to finance. Then there is this category of the known unknowns, things you are aware of but don't understand. Some of the examples would be switching from doing business to making an art, jumping from public corporation to a fast-growing venture. You really don't know. You take a leap in faith. Or in business, it can be exploring a new market segment. In finance, it can be peer-to-peer lending or access to social security. So these are the types of things which fall under the category of known unknowns. Then there is the category of the unknown unknowns. This is where things which you are neither aware of nor understand. Say, starting a business. You need more information. You just can't start business offhand. Taking a sabbatical, say, when women go on maternity leave and then take additional leave for childcare and all. They know they have to take it, but then what else can they do? They don't know. In business, it can be crowdfunding of business. We hear of a lot of technology and all, but really, how does crowdfunding take place? How do you get the money? How do you pay back? And things like that. Then you have the unknown knowns, things you are not aware of but understand. Examples would be encountering gender bias during hiring process. It can be preferences for color and taste. In the area of finance, it could be use of algorithm-based financing or what is popularly known as cash flow-based financing. So this metrics can be used to carry out assessments in terms of different areas or different problems to understand the opportunities and the threats. So when Socrates said, "I know nothing except the fact of my ignorance," he sounded self-effacing, but actually he was explaining the root source of his incredible genius. Being aware of unknown unknowns is the first step of any learning journey, the AVLOKAN journey, basically. And the only appropriate response to being unconsciously incompetent is to explore, to experience, and investigate stuff that leads to a scary place that is of conscious incompetence or known unknown. So, okay, friends, we now let us try to know about something which we know nothing about, the known unknowns. They can be overwhelming. And from here, we have two choices. The first is regressive. We can try to bury this new awareness and drive it back to unknown unknowns. Just forget about it and forget it. The alternative is being progressive. Investigate solutions, carry out research, try to find out the best practices in science, carry out experiments to move to this zone from known unknowns to known knowns. However, a lack of investment, lack of effort could lead to a loss of performance. Even after you know, you can fall back to conscious incompetence known as the known unknown. It may be possible to just stick in this zone, do enough to remain good at something, but it will always take effort. However, we can choose to move on and work to our newfound faculty, and with practice and experience, move to what might be called a state of grace, the unknown known. Here in performance is effortless. it feels like we don't even know what we know. We are unconsciously competent. And I would encourage everybody to understand this construct. You have a lot of material available. And to quote a brand like Nike, it is just when you are in the zone of unconsciously competent, that is the unknown known, you just do it, basically. So when we accept the fact of our own ignorance, that's what Socrates said, and learn like we are going to live forever, like Mahatma Gandhi said, and we can reach a state of grace in which our heart has its reasons, which reasons doesn't know, which was given by Pascal. So when Pascal advised the heart has its reason, for which reasons do not know, he was making a sense for emotional decision making. He acknowledged the fact of unconscious competence and placed it above conscious competence, that is reason in performance terms. So by identifying what is known and unknown in your situations, you will have more information at your disposal on how to take imaginative action, and that is the space of innovation. Dear friends, the same concept can be applied to become more aware of potential of women in business and to identify the blind spots. There are 4 types of leadership awareness: the known strengths, the unknown strengths, the known weaknesses, and the blind spot. So when you talk of the known strengths, the leader is aware of the knowledge and skills of the woman and how to leverage them to benefit the organization. That's easy. But then there is the known weaknesses. That's where there can be issues. Sometimes there can be some cognitive biases. The leader is aware of the shortcomings of women and how they might impact the organization. But a good leader would work on them to minimize any negative impact. Then there are the issue of the unknown strengths. The leader is not fully aware of women's knowledge or skills. The leader can practice self-awareness to identify them. Spotting talent, identifying talent is also a very, very important task of a leader. And then there are different levels of blindness. There can be lack of awareness. The leader is unaware of a woman's vulnerability and how much risk she represents. All are not fair and good. So there can be risks also. So there can be lack of awareness. Don't take everyone at face value. There can be a faulty assessment. The leader is aware of the vulnerability, but doesn't understand its potential impact. So that is also something we need to understand. And then there is the failure to act, where the leader is aware of vulnerability, but doesn't have the skill to address it. So for discovering women's strengths and weaknesses and their unknown capabilities, it is helpful to use this blind spot matrix. It is also what other things they are not aware of that can help them realize just how wrong they are in making their judgment. Dear friends, now let me move to another area of how linear thinking in a non-linear world leads to wrong decisions. Our brains prefer to think in straight lines and hierarchies. However, this bias towards linear thinking often traps unwary decision makers who fail to recognize the non-linear relationships they are dealing with actually. So leadership is a big, what you call a big nebulous word for many people, one that can mean many different things to different people across cultures. Great leaders are not always in front. So when I am asking, when the title of my presentation is that women should be placed before men, it is not this linear relationship which I'm alluding to. It is all about the situational need and timing. At times, they can lead from the front. This might be an excellent position to take for a short period in a crisis, where as a leader, one is expected to take charge and blaze the trail. In that situation, there is no time to explain to your herd why they are doing something, and they just need to follow you to survive. However, constantly leading from the front is exhausting. Eventually, the herd will tire of following someone blindly. They will disengage from the work and seek out their own path. And as a leader, you cannot look back. You have to look at the front. And then sometimes you have leaders in the middle. The leader is in the relationship zone when they are in the middle. Here, the situation is less hierarchical. It is more supportive. Other team members may make decisions about speed and direction. The leaders have the ability to make changes if needed. And if you give your herd or the team the autonomy, they will be able to bind more closely with the leader. And here the leader, because of the trust that is given and received, is seen as a transactional leader. Many times you can lead from behind, and in a war, the general seldom is at the war front. The general is in the strategy room where the war strategies are being planned. Leading from behind offers a unique perspective on the team and the herd. It is the position of the servant leader with a high-performing team. From the rear, the goal is communicated and the team makes their way. Being given responsibility for course corrections is highly motivating to the team. Engaging with them results in greater productivity. In addition, the leader is able to keep both the goal and the team in her field of vision and can make minor adjustments sooner to reach the destination more efficiently. Leading from behind is also the best position to develop future leaders. From here, one can see who is most effective at handling obstacles and also influencing the rest of the team for better and worse. While building a compelling case for gender diversity, advancing women leadership in the workplace should consider all these dimensions. And just remember the mothers at home. The mothers are basically leading from behind. They are not at the forefront, but they have their fingers on the pulse of everyone in the family, and they know whom to caution and whom to encourage at different times. Dear friends, few think one gender has a better leadership approach than the other. This was something which I was discussing while preparing for this presentation. This is not true. What one sees are different styles. Female leaders are viewed as having an advantage over their male counterparts when being compassionate and empathetic. They are also viewed as having an advantage over men in working out compromises. Now, to correlate this with what Jack Ma says, no matter how smart computers are, human beings will be champions. The world is not about smartness. The world is about the heart. Wisdom is from the heart. The brain is about knowledge. And if you compete with knowledge, the computer will win. If you compete with wisdom, the computer has no chance. So when we are talking of jobs being displaced and replaced with technology, we need to keep this in mind, that what would be those skills which will be in demand, and what would be those unique skills which women have an advantage. Business must realize having lady wisdom is the beginning of wisdom. But dear friends, then you may ask, what is a business with a soul? I also mentioned the word soul in my title. A business that has a soul shares a passion and motivation with its customers. Instead of simply creating a corporate identity, a business with a soul can truly connect with consumers. It is critical to appeal to all types of men and women out there and understand their beliefs, their needs, and behavior. The brand interacts with customers by accepting feedback. It also demonstrates its commitment to the community. Some do so by supporting a cause. For example, a shoe store owner or a shoe brand can donate a pair of shoes to a child in need when every pair is purchased. Businesses need to align these brand promises with how it is built and how it delivers on pledges, all with the future in mind. I am making this statement because a lot of future investment in ESG, environment, social, and governance, will be made keeping these types of commitments in mind, which can be measured. Dear friends, again, research by UN Women, UN Environment, and many others show that empowered women are great entrepreneurs. This is precisely true because they understand the multiple economic, social, and environmental benefits for their families and communities by having it. And here, the rise of the she economy will help overcome missed opportunities. As a market, women represent an opportunity bigger than China and India combined. They control $28 trillion in consumer spending. They have their control on the purse strings of men also at home. When women are working, or even if they are at home, we see that a woman drives 70 to 80% of all consumer purchases. They are important influencers. This has a lot to do with the multiplier effect. And even if women are not making the transaction, they are still impacting the decisions because they are the primary caregiver of the children and also the elderly. Given the power of this audience, women have to be at the front and center of content and product development. When I refer to content, it is about advertising, branding, and things like that. Beyond just seeing themselves in advertising a product, women need to play a key role in developing the product. And this is where women will make femme products for women. And that's where businesses will want to capitalize this piece of this $28 trillion female economy. And here you can have a gender bias, of course, a positive one. And those who realize this can truly move market shares, they can win votes, they can foster values, they can strengthen the bottom line. And the women's growing economic and political power will innovate the way we perceive business, products, and politics. So ecofeminism will drive sustainable development. The COVID-19 crisis has triggered a domino effect, revealing inherent flaws in our current development models. We cannot repair this model anymore, which failed us. So could this shift in focus presented by ecofeminism hold the key to truly sustainable and inclusive development? As Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen said, and I quote, "Advancing gender equality may be one of the best ways of saving the environment and countering the dangers of overcrowding and other adversities associated with population pressure. The voice of women is critically important for the world's future and not just for the women's future. The concept of ecofeminism refers to women and feminist perspectives on the environment, where the domination and exploitation of women, of poorly resourced people, and nature are all interlinked. Ecofeminism says that women are closer to nature than men, and they believe in a direct connection between the oppression of nature and the subordination of women. This closeness therefore makes women more nurturing and caring towards the environment. Educating and empowering women can have a quantifiable effect on reducing a country's emissions and actively involving women in discussions on climate policy often leads to more sustainable development. I referred to that example of a woman who uses a charcoal stove. Imagine if women consciously take a decision not to use charcoal, and what will be its impact on the environment. And that is the type of message we need to see, and that is the power of women in terms of promoting sustainable development. However, friends, we can never lose sight of the fact that efforts to promote these she ecosystems that will support women to take a step beyond micro is not that easy. Some 70% of women workers are employed or self-employed in informal jobs, insecure, unprotected, and poorly paid. Significant areas of gender inequalities in the economy include women's predominance in the informal economy, occupational segregation, discrimination in the entire recruitment process, their retention, their promotion, their re-entry into the chain, into formal employment once they take time off, gender pay gaps, they do not have assets in their names which they can pledge for collateral, unequal and inadequate access to productive resources, capacity building and finance, and heavy and disproportionate burden of unpaid care and domestic work and sexual harassment at the workplace. So women economic empowerment would require that market-based approaches and financial gains and incentives must go hand in hand. We do need an enabling environment, but we cannot leave everything to the government. The business has to play a role and play their rightful role. In addition, the entrepreneurial ecosystem should enable women to realize their rights and level the capacity and opportunity playing field. Entrepreneurship and decent work are bedrocks of economic empowerment. They support the economic empowerment of women and men, families, communities, and countries. Historically, systematic discrimination against women constrains their full and equal participation in the economy, and this means governments and the private sector need to take special measures. Using old gender stereotypes about risk aversion and risk tolerance to inform our decisions is something which is quite usual. If we do that, you will, in all likeliness, make a big mistake. Leaders who seek guidance in the old men are from Mars, women are from Venus paradigm will quickly lose their way, because when it comes to risk and gender, the relevant celestial orbs are Uranus and Neptune, two planets that are nearly the same in size. 95% of the risk preferences of men and women overlap. Is this to say there are no differences at all? Not exactly. There's a lot of variation among men and women within each gender, single and married, younger and older, and therefore it is important to understand that the context and type of risk are important factors in explaining behaviors. Research shows that when under stress, men make riskier decisions than women. Women are better at evaluating their behavior in hindsight, which can be better for informing future decisions surrounding risks. And then what is the relationship between gender and risk-taking when it comes to boardrooms? New evidence suggests that organizations with critical mass of women board members approach risk more holistically and in a way that squeezes a little more value of decisions. Research from the IMF has determined that incrementing a board by just one woman board member while keeping the board size unchanged is associated with a higher return on assets. Having a woman on corporate boards also substantially reduces the risk of fraud. Whether there is a correlation or it's causal, I'm not sure, but corporations with substantial numbers of women on their boards have less fraud. Thus, feminization of risk management will also drive firm performance and corporate governance. In recent years, the technological field has taken revolutionary steps to balance out gender disparities. The tech world needs the perspective of more women tech founders if we are to tackle some of the biggest challenges impacting us, from food systems to the future of the family. It has led to the advent of a female-centric technology market, or femtech, where tech solutions are being developed to respond to the specific needs of the woman. So the future of technology is also femtech, or feminine technology. There is merit in considering how increasing the number of women in the workforce might lead to a wholesome digital product and a better human-centric solution. Increasing the number of women in the workforce helps improve the problem-solving abilities of teams, thus leading to better human-centric solutions. This is because the greater diversity of experience a group has, the more perspectives it has to bring to bear when solving problems. Companies that hire more women have been found to generate more revenue. In part, this is likely because of more women-friendly products and services, their human-centric solutions, and also other products that have been produced. Dear friends, finally, in conclusion, men have responded to the feminist movement in different ways, some supportive, some antagonistic. Feminists too have at times taken a hard line, a separatist stance, seeing the challenge of achieving gender equality as resting exclusively with women, ignoring the issue of men and their socialization within the patriarchal system, is something we need to ponder on. Gender inequality concerns both men and women and strongly impacts their daily lives. It should not be contextualized mainly as a woman's issue, as women have been a driving force behind these gender equality strategies and struggles. We need to see that they strive for equality, but you cannot just improve society's treatment of women and girls if men too do not benefit. Research has shown that when men advocate for gender equity, their efforts are taken more seriously. It's still a man's world, like it or not. For changing the status quo, men may have a greater responsibility to work towards it. As a group with collectively more power, influence, and capital than women, men have to work together with women. The idea that women's rights are gained at the expense of men is opposite of the truth. There's now a stack of evidence that men benefit from living in more gender equal societies. That's the benefit which men gain. Policies promoting gender equality improve the quality of life of everyone, not just for women. In more gender equal societies, men are half as likely to be depressed, less likely to commit suicide, and have around a 40% smaller risk of dying a violent death. It is also true that the way together is the way forward. And then men as allies working alongside women need to act by placing women ahead of them, not only to signal that they are the good guys or because it's morally just, but also because of their enlightened self-interest. It is by standing up for the rights of girls and women that we truly measure up as men. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir. Be it the femtech, be it the she economy, be it the female wisdom, be it the lady wisdom. It was so enlightening, inspiring, and very, very touching, sir. Thank you. Sir, there are a lot of questions and answers. So if you permit me, I will ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Over to Chirag. Chirag, can you please ask a question?
Dear sir, my question is, according to the word, family narratives and broader culture notions, it is believed that their woman commitment to family is primarily by nature. So their commitment to work has to be secondary. To what extent, sir, you think that statement is true?
Well, when women are working for the family, they are also working, and that is something which is not being recognized. And I mentioned that in my talk also. They are the homemakers, they are the caregivers. In many situations, you need to pay for these services. Just because you get these services for free, you don't recognize the worth of those services, and that is what needs to be quantified. As students of economics in national income and accounting, these types of work contributed by women in some countries are quantified as part of national income. So if you don't have the lady at home and you use a creche, there is an opportunity cost. But again, home is the best school. If you want to really create a generation which is responsible, the mother is the best teacher, the home is the best school. And that is something which nobody can replace in the formative years and also in the later years. And that is something we should not discount.
Wow, sir, I can't agree with you more. Thank you, sir. We have another question from our student, Palak. Please ask your question.
Dear sir, my question is, women have always supported men in achieving their goal. But when it comes to women, most of the men, they don't support them. So, sir, how can we change this stereotype mentality from the society?
Well, yeah, well, they say that behind every successful man, there is a woman. So that is something which men also accept. So definitely men have got the support from the women, be it their mothers, be it their sisters, daughters, wives, friends, and all. I think men also reciprocate. It's a question of mindset, you know. And that is something we need to be conscious about. If men are not supporting women, if it is for a family cause, that is fine. But if women wants to make a career, if the men are not supporting, that is something we need to change. And here also, I think a lot of these mindsets which developed in the past, they were all primarily determined or driven due to economic factors, number one. And the second one was because of security factors. So women at home ensured that the home is secure also. And because of different reasons. And when I'm talking of security, it's not only security at the family level, but also at the community level. So we have to we have to remember that collective power of the community also. Women not being at the workforce also doesn't mean that they were not part of a community which was again contributing towards a social cause. So they continue to do a lot of tasks, but for which they are not recognized, for which they are not paid. And that is why, so if there is a girl or a boy who is very successful and he has a mother who is working in a corporate, he can say, I have a successful mother. But if his mother is a housewife, and even if she has put her blood and sweat to bring them up, bring the children up, they will again hesitate to say what role their mother played. Though they know that the lady played a role, they would say, well, all mothers play that role. So I think it's both men and women, boys and girls need to recognize this role of women. Now as Chancellor Roychand was mentioning yesterday, with technology coming in, women can be more productive even without getting out of home. So there was a concept of working to get out of home. Now you can do a lot of things by sitting at home. I'm sitting at home and talking to you. So those things are possible and you can earn. So that is where, that is the unknown, and that is where we need to seek opportunities. And there are a lot of skills which we are learning, which will just no longer exist in the next 30, 40 years. So we need to understand how to reskill ourselves. So those are some of the issues also we need to look at. So therefore, my simple answer is men would support, because it is again for economic reasons, with expenses increasing, be it health, be it education, be it for lifestyle reasons. They need additional income from women, and they will do it. So when I was growing up, we saw parents saving money for the marriage of their daughters. They had just started spending money for professional education of their daughters. In business education and all was still just beginning. People were just exploring whether ladies can really do well or not. But then I see a social change happening. So once women started getting professional degrees in larger numbers, they started taking a call on their future and lives. They decided who their life partner would be. Not that the parents' influence slowly is getting receded. And both the women and the men, or the boys and the girls, are today prepared to take more risk, because they can, if both are employed, they are no longer dependent on their families, at a point in time. So they have that economic muscle and strength to even break certain norms and break away, disrupt some of these mindsets. So that is how things are moving. And these are all positive movements. Of course, we need to be careful in this context, because whenever there is a disruption, there could be a chaos. And that chaos should not lead in breaking of values and family systems. So how that alternate system can be developed, where some of those cultural values are preserved, the family and community values are preserved, that is where we need to work as society modernizes.
Wow. Thank you, sir. I don't think we could have got a better answer to this question. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of a remarkable, memorable, and a knowledgeable session of the knows and unknowns, lady wisdom, she economy, ecofeminism, female economy, and femtech. I just have one word to describe this session, and that is wow. We hope that the innovative ideas shared during the session would have nourished your mind. I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Mr. Anup Chatterjee, whose words of wisdom would have enlightened us and also have given us a different perspective to think. Sir, thank you so much. We genuinely learned a lot. We understood a very different perspective, and these terminologies were just mind-blowing. Thank you very, very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked it.
Thank you, sir. I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our Honorable Chancellor, Dr. Chandraj Roychand, our Vice Chancellor, Dr. Raj Singh, and our esteemed Director, Dr. Dinesh Neelkan, for his unconditional support and encouragement. Thank you so much. I would like to hand over the stage to the MC, over to Dr. Shiva Chowdhury. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, we have with us joined in our Director Academic Planning, Professor Sridhar Murthy. Thanks for joining in, sir. Very warm welcome to you. Now, carrying the same intellectual vibe forward from Arup sir's session, I would like to invite Professor Baishakhi Devnath to introduce our next speaker of the session. Over to Professor Baishakhi.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. Now it's time to introduce our esteemed speaker of the session, Dr. Raj Singh. Dr. Raj Singh is the Vice Chancellor of Jain, Dean to be University, Bangalore. With 40 years of experience, including 27 years in education, he has been the Vice Chancellor of various prestigious universities across India, having served the Indian Air Force for 13 years. A consultant, trainer, astute academic administrator, teacher, speaker, and education entrepreneur, Dr. Singh has done his master's in economics and chartered financial analyst CFA and PhD in strategic finance. He is known for his oratory skills and innovative approach in higher education and is a TEDx speaker. A strong proponent of outcome-based inter- and transdisciplinary education and research, he has been instrumental in designing innovative pathways in collaboration with universities globally. A trainer and consultant for Indian and multinational companies, he has trained over 5,000 teachers in schools as well as higher education. Dr. Singh has published and presented many research papers and delivered keynote addresses in over 80 conferences and have been a panelist in many TV shows, being featured as one of the movers and shakers on Daily World Post and My Icon on FM channel in 2016 and 2017. He represented India at the International Design Summit held in Milan, Italy in 2013. Widely traveled and a visiting professor at prestigious universities and institutions, he has also been a member of various advisory boards and have been conferred several awards. He is also the vice co-chair, ASSOCHAM, Karnataka chapter. He has developed the unique transdisciplinary project-centric learning at Jain, deemed to be university, which will take education to the intersection of research and practice during Jain 2.0. Dear sir, it gives us immense pleasure to welcome you to deliver your views. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vaisakhi. Mr. Arup Chatterjee, an old friend who has set new benchmarks speaking before me. I thank him for joining from Manila, which must be quite late. I believe we're about 2.5 hours ahead of India, but it was a pleasure listening to him. Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, the director of CMS, my dear team of faculty members and incredible students of CMS who have put together this research summit, working very hard for the last many months. Audience from across the globe, greetings from Jain University, Bangalore. And thank you for joining us on the second day of AVLOKAN. The International Research Summit, which started yesterday with Roger Smith, I think is going to set many benchmarks on such diverse topics, which are rarely heard. While I express my gratitude to each one of you for joining, let me confess, I'll try to deal with this issue today, which is assigned to me, where I have been asked to speak on topic teaching, learning in higher education and social responsibility. I'll try to deal it slightly beyond a very narrow meaning of donations, charity, and scholarships. When it comes to volunteering, I think that's a better way of teaching social responsibility to our students than perhaps involving in charity and kind of scholarships and other donations. Please also take my views as coming from someone who is both a failed and successful entrepreneur, education entrepreneur, and a student of finance and economics all my life. And you will find a flavor of this as I proceed this evening. I hope I can share my screen. I'll be using a presentation unlike Arup, who spoke ex tempo. Can you see my screen?
Sure, sir. So you need to put it on slideshow. Slideshow.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I hope you can see it clearly now.
Yes, sir. It's perfect now.
Thank you. Thank you. So teaching, learning, and higher education and social responsibility, it's something which is very close to my heart, and I've been dealing with this topic for over a decade now. And as we go along the agenda, I'll try to develop a case for why social responsibility has become so important even in the field of education. The agenda for today's talk I have kept so that I don't miss out and creates a structure for each one of us to follow. And there are certain models which I have been developing over the last few years. It will be easy for you to understand and get the essence of it. We'll try to understand the objective of higher education in its simplest form. We'll also look at knowing changing expectations and role of social responsibility of higher education. And in the process, also understand the current scenario of higher education, particularly Indian higher education. We'll look at some of the conceptual sophistications which have enabled us more than ever before in the history to make a social impact as an academic institution. We'll also look at how linking research to innovation and entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship can lead to social good, which I think has been the theme since yesterday. They so eloquently spoken by our Honorable Chancellor, and before me, Professor Arup Chatterjee, as far as leading with heart is concerned. And finally, I'll deal with a case study which we have developed and started implementing in our own university, Jain Team to be University. And that I think will be more for illustration that how teaching learning process can lead to creating a case for social responsibility and also make an impact on the society we serve. If you know the overall objective of education, I take two definitions, one from the University Grants Commission of India, and second from the recently announced new National Education Policy. As per University Grants Commission, it said in 2019, the overall objective of education is to groom a well-rounded person with ethical and moral values, social sensitivity, and professional competence. You would say in this that in addition to professional competence, where we've been primarily engaged with, I think the objective of education needs to go much beyond this. And particularly, I'd like to add along with social sensibilities, social sensitivities as well. I think that clearly defines what role education is expected to play as far as social responsibility is concerned, social service is concerned, social good is concerned. Going to national education policy, it says the aim of quality university must be to develop good, well-rounded and creative individuals capable of personal accomplishments and enlightenment, constructive public engagement, and productive contribution to the society. It's quite similar to what the University Grants Commission said. It has been reiterated, rather expanded further as far as the role of higher education is concerned. Let me deviate a bit. As I said, I can't help myself bring the flavor of finance and economics into my talk because the economic and business environment directly affects the type of education we should have and the deliverables expected from a university system like ours. 1947, this was in fact passed by the parliament 4 months before we were declared independent country. Control of capital issues. And cutting the story short, it decided who should be holding the capital in a company, whether public sector or private sector. 1989, it was abolished, and gradually its powers were transferred to the current regulator called SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India. And only one point I want to mention from this, whenever companies issued public issue shares, whether rights issue, public issue, or any kind of issues, by design, controller of capital issues underpriced it. Underpriced means the companies which float the shares will get lesser money for each share by design, not because market prices them low. And that kept the cost of capital very, very high for the companies, making them inefficient, making them less viable, and indirectly it acted as an entry barrier into the business. SEBI turned it to more market-based kind of pricing, and thus lowering the cost of capital. 1969, as you would agree, there was a phase in the Indian history starting late 1960s and going well to the end of 1970s when Mrs. Gandhi's government was ruling. And she had this typical habit of nationalizing almost everything she came across. Everything was going on fine. And I think 1969 with the nationalization of few banks and two pieces of legislation her government passed. One was MRTPC, Monopolistic and Restricted Trade Practices Commission, established in 1969, which was abolished and converted into Competition Commission of India in 2002. This, in essence, stopped the companies from being larger or from expanding. As came out yesterday, we discussed about antitrust laws in the US, something similar role it played when companies expanded beyond a size, it intervened and stopped them from expanding. And all of you would know when we opened up, we could not survive vis-a-vis the large companies which entered India. And the second piece of legislation was passed in 1973 FERA, Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, which also got moderated and changed to Foreign Exchange Management Act in 2000. It stopped foreign money flowing into India as if we were having this money in abundance. And we were always short of capital, particularly foreign capital. And this was taken care of by converting this into FEMA. Coming to education, which is learned from the reforms in industry and economics. In 2003, the National Board of Accreditation was a part of All India Council for Technical Education. And I must mention an instance. It was that time when I used to be the vice chairman of the Quality Committee in Higher Education, Quality Council of India, which came under the Ministry of Industry at that time. And in one of the discussions, which was on quality conclave, I raised an issue which directly came from corporate governance. And I said, if this arrangement is not changed, if NBA is not made autonomous of AICTE, history is going to repeat in education, where in its parallel, Arthur Andersen as a great company died because of conflict of interest. As some of you would recall, Andersen Consulting was the consulting arm of Arthur Andersen. And they wanted consulting assignments from the corporates, and therefore they did not perform stringent audit of those companies. And this conflict of interest led to Arthur Andersen being involved in the audit of companies. And you will recall around the same time, 2001, 2002, there was a spate of corporate scams starting from US, Italy, and of course it reached India much later in the form of Satyam kind of scams. And friends, it was that statement, even though AICTE stopped calling me for any of the meetings after that, it got the wide publicity in newspapers and magazines, and NBA stopped functioning for next 4 years. And then it came its new Avtara, which we see today, completely autonomous as compared to AICTE. Subsequent to this, a lot of initiatives started in education, which to begin with was in 2015. It also coincided with the constitution of committee, which would draft national education policy for us, announced last year. A quality mandate was issued by the University Grants Commission in 2015. Choice-based credit system guidelines were issued, though the piece of legislation was issued in 2014 August. Detailed guidelines came in 2015. We have seen evaluation reforms, both in technical institutions and other institutions, announced by AICTE in 2018 and UGC in 2019, and last year, National Education Policy, and this year, consequent to that, as late as 4 days ago, Academic Bank of Credit has been announced and the guideline followed. In essence, what has happened, if you look at this wave of corporate governance, which started with more precisely 1989 with Sir Adrian Cadbury report in UK, and of course, one of the earlier ones like King's Committee report of 1976 in South Africa. In between, the world was silent about it. And that Sir Adrian Cadbury, one of the most profound committee reports as far as corporate governance is concerned, led like a wave which swept the entire globe, irrespective of the industry sectors, and education was no exception. And today, as we discuss, I think we have come a full cycle from most regulated education system to one of the most forward-looking, most open education system. ABC is something which has taken the entire world by surprise. We have seen systems like this, which prevailed within a university campus, which prevailed within a consortium of universities that they recognize credits of each other. We could never expect that India-like country would make it open and it will be applicable to institutions and universities across not only India, but anything under the sun. You can earn credits and deposit in this bank. We'll discuss as we proceed the implications of this. A lot of conference and seminars will be held in India as we move towards implications and implementation of ABC. And mind you, it is applicable from the session starting this month, 2021-22. In essence, we have moved from the culture of teaching more to the outcome attainment. It's no more true that teaching more is quality teaching. I think if we can attain the outcomes by teaching as less as possible, that is going to be a better education system than the one which we have seen in India particularly. When you link education and social responsibilities till 1990s, when private institutions were counted, very few institutions existed. To give an example, in 1993, we had 87 business schools only, which is now somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. It's very difficult to count the numbers. That has been the growth. And this number of business schools is among more than 50,000 colleges and universities in the country. Education itself was the social responsibility of the government. And therefore, there's no question of academic institutions and social responsibility, because they were created that government has to shoulder the social responsibility, and private institutions were not there. It was after the entry of private sector institutions in 1990s, early 1990s, that the concept of governance, which had evolved by then, have put governance and leadership in the universities and higher education institutions to greater scrutiny. And this has happened, as I said, in the last 25 to 30 years. We never saw it when we were students. This kind of reform, this kind of scrutiny of what kind of leadership is there in academic institutions and how institutions should be contributing to corporate social responsibility. Social responsibility plays a critical role in higher education sector. This is as per the QS, the rating agency or ranking agencies. It says it plays a critical role in higher education so that the role of higher education gets cemented as a catalyst for innovation and not only academic outputs. It should lead beyond that. How university can be catalyst for change in the minds of the student, the way we train them, and the kind of impact we create around the university and of course globally, wherever we can reach. The progress for the society and the community, social and economic development, and most importantly, sustainability. As you would know that today, sustainable campuses is one of the big concepts among the universities. How we manage our infrastructure in a manner that will become sustainable. And I'll discuss some of the reforms proposed by National Education Policy will have significant role to play in this. Let me present some statistics as far as the current status is concerned, and I'll tell you the context why I present these statistics, how it has a role in terms of social responsibilities of academic institutions. Today, only 2.7% of the institutions in India conduct PhD program, and PhD I take as a representative of research activities. Enrollments in PhD till 2018 were less than 170,000, 169,170, and in 2019 it crossed 200,000. This was as per the latest report, All India Survey of Higher Education, which has got published recently. And this is less than 0.5% of total admissions we have, where the gross enrollment ratio currently stands at 27.1%. And for the understanding of students, a gross enrollment ratio is the percentage of students who enter to the university system from the school system. It's a meager 27.1, and the national education policy aims to take it to 50% in next 10 years or so. It's growing at 7.6% for about 5 to 6 years, and the highest number of PhD enrollments are in science and engineering and technology. 40,813 students were awarded PhD during 2018 and 38,986 in 2019, slightly less than the previous year. The share of PhD students in highest in state public universities, as you're aware, India has 4 types of universities: central and state private universities, deemed universities, and state private universities. And state private universities have the highest share of 29.8%, followed by international importance, deemed university private, which is R type, that is Jan deemed to be university, and central university, 13.6%. In 2017, we filed only 14,961 patents against 12,45,719 and 2,93,904 in China and US respectively. In 2020, we went up to 26,309, almost doubled. As per World Intellectual Property Indicators 2020, India moved up from 10th to 8th position in the world as compared to 2018. And most of the research funding comes. One day, some of my colleagues asked me that why research funding comes only from the government and not from the industry. And the answer, one of my colleagues from industry who was in the panel said, it's a question of establishing credibility. How innovative we as universities have been in providing solutions to the problems of the industry. I think the research output in terms of quality publications and filing patents establishes a credibility, and the industry starts looking at these academic institutions and give them assignments so that they can find solutions to their problems. It also is in terms of quality. If you look at the share in global research being 5%, citation only 2 to 3%, means if it's high quality publications, more and more citations will take place. And this will become a pertinent issue as through teaching learning process, when integrate research into it, we need to maintain quality so that it's reflected in citation index as well. The second issue about the current status I want to present to all of you is 522 out of the 1,019 universities we have, 522 are of general nature, means all the programs are offered in that. Otherwise, you have a women university, you have a medical university, you have skill university, you have homeopathy university, and all kind of specialized universities, your university for education only, highly specialized universities, which is not often seen across the globe. 10.75% colleges are only for women. Only 2.7% run PhD programs. 32.6% running a single program, and 84.1% of them are privately managed, and 37.4% only offer B.Ed program. And most disturbing figure is 16.6% of these colleges have less than 100 enrollment. Now, why I'm giving this statistics that these are not financially viable. One of the social responsibility of teaching learning design has to be that it has to be run efficiently. And because of this, it is not being run efficiently, and therefore there's a concern of providing quality education, which is anything but against fulfilling the social responsibilities of academic institutions. We have less than 50,000 foreign students from 168 countries, mostly from neighboring countries. And out of 307 affiliating universities, 16 of them affiliate 500 or more colleges, highest being 942. I wonder, once you have 500 plus colleges being affiliated with the university, a vice chancellor like me would even know the names of the colleges, forget about interacting with them and forget about ensuring quality and effectiveness of whatever they do. And therefore, rightly so, national education policy has proposed that the affiliation system has to be phased out over next about 2034 is the last when all these colleges should be accredited, and they will be converting into either universities or becoming part of the existing universities or become autonomous colleges who can award degrees. And this is a very, very important move which has been suggested, because it has to be taken out of the clutches of the affiliating universities. And they should have the freedom that they can design teaching learning processes which helps them fulfill social responsibilities more than they've been able to do till now. And it is precisely these 2 points which have been highlighted, which says the higher education has to, of course, offer equity and access where everybody has right to pursue quality education. But this time, quality word has been added. No matter what mode you access education, quality has to be ensured. And the second thing is, they are proposing larger campuses and not these small, financially unviable campuses, so that they can impart education with a great efficiency, and they can focus on, rather than managing day-to-day affairs, to the purpose for which they come into existence. And that is what I mean by providing solutions to industry, community, and the society. One of the important part of the governance in universities is to be compliant. We propose that a university has to be compliance plus. Friends, you must have observed, not only in India, but in most developing countries, whenever the norms and standards are prescribed, we are very quick to take them as the upper limit. We strive to reach there and we put it as a ceiling, whereas norms and standards prescribe minimum standards you need to follow, and that has to be nothing more than the floor. Ceiling is much above that. So this is compliance plus. I mean that the minimum norms and standards have to be the floor, and you have to go beyond this as we build the superstructure of a university or an academic institution. We need to comply by the regulatory bodies, accreditation agencies, ranking. We have to keep in mind so that we are rightly placed vis-a-vis our competitors. It has to be outcome-based and not the input-based. This is a paradigm shift which is requiring a complete mindset change, both of teachers, students, as well as the parents, who are major stakeholders in the education process. While we talk about outcomes, we still think in terms of inputs, that why we are not taking so many classes, why online, without understanding that when this change takes place, the learning will shift outside the classroom and the role of institutions will become even more important. And I'll highlight this in a short while. National education policy guidelines have to be followed and complied with. But if you look at the bottom 3 things, one is that the universities have to be in line with national and international missions and goals, strategic development goals of the United Nations, for example. Our education has to groom students who are industry relevant. There should not be any gap. And if you're able to do that, I think that's the biggest or the most important social responsibility we will discharge. But I think when you look at the community, particularly the one at the bottom of pyramid, if you can take care of that, if you can uplift the standards of living for this segment of the society, I think that will be a great contribution towards meeting the social responsibility. And I'll see how it can be done through teaching learning interventions and illustrate through the case studies of our own university. The first step we need to take is we need to link research to innovation and practice. Many of the audience from India and across the globe who are listening to me, just pause for a moment and think. Whenever you did your MPhil thesis or PhD dissertation you wrote, what happened to this dissertation? How many of us looked at it once again in lifetime? And how many of us converted this thesis into something which is useful for the society, for the community? I say majority of us not. I think that's the need. Academic output is not, I'm not undermining that. It's extremely, extremely important, because we as researchers and academics are very sensitive when somebody criticizes the only academic outputs of any research activity. I'm not undermining that by any means, but there's a need, there's an urgent need, I would say, of looking at this academic output beyond and how it can lead to innovation and practice so that we can find solutions for the country and be part of the innovation system which we have created through various missions and the efforts by developing the second largest education system in the world. Look at this diagram. It is based on one of the greatest scientists. Once I met him in 2004, and we're discussing this debate of research, where it stops and where it should go. And those days, you would recall, India had caught the fancy of the entire world for frugal innovation, that how we can do more for less for more people. Means very, very less expensive kind of innovative solutions to provide for the entire world. It suited both India because of it being highly populated. We wanted more and more people to be served. It also served the Western world in particular, which has been reeling under the recession of 2008 and 9 later on. And they wanted very innovative, less expensive products to sustain their standards of living. So it appealed to the entire world, in fact. And he said, the difference between research and innovation is very simple. He said, research converts data and information into knowledge and consumes money, consumes resources. And we always find it short. And we keep on complaining, we don't have resources, government does not do enough, university does not do enough. He says, this problem can be overcome if you simply convert this knowledge back into money. And that happens through innovations. And if you complete this cycle, it becomes a very sustainable model, wherein there is no shortage of resources for conducting further research if you make it applied. And I must reiterate that I do not undermine the importance of fundamental research or purely academic research. This needs to be kept in mind as far as research as an activity is concerned for academic institutions. The conceptual sophistication, and I've cited Muhammad Yunus. Amartya Sen was cited by Arup just before me. And I bring in here our own C.K. Prahlad, who wrote the book Fortune at the Bottom of Pyramid. I think what largely our chancellor spoke yesterday, he derived from this philosophy. According to the bottom of pyramid theory, friends, about 4 billion people in this world today are at less than $4 per day earning or per day income. If I reduce this to about $2.50, we have about 2.7 billion people, which is about 50%, maybe 45 to 50% of the people. But bottom-up pyramid defined by C.K. Prahlad says about 2/3 of the world population is in this segment. And there are layers after layers, maybe from $4 to $3 to $2.50 and $2 and so on. And he says, these billions of consumers who are below the bottom, at the bottom of the pyramid or below the sustenance level, which is required, they represent a huge market for larger corporations, but also they provide an engine of innovation, vitality, and growth. Every next billion there can be served by us, served by the industry. Let me stay here for about a minute or so. You would recall the revolution in telecom sector when mobile phones reached the countryside. This was around maybe 2006, 7, 2008 or so. Our own Bharti Airtel started selling prepaid SIMs. And you recall, millions of people, they had kiosks on the roadside in the cities, and they not only earned for themselves, they provide employment to at least 1 or 2 people more per kiosk, and they all could sustain the family. And that is what means by fortune at the bottom of pyramid. It's not only meant for solopreneurs, but it also makes a lot of sense to larger enterprises, because these solopreneurs or small organizations, could align with their interest and serve them. You must have seen many other concepts, whether these milk dairies, village amma, an illiterate elderly lady in the village distributes the ration to the entire village. She knows the requirement of everybody and turns into an entrepreneur. Not only fends for herself, I think she fends for the entire family. And this is the vitality and innovation potential which C.K. Prahlad talked about. His thoughts first time came in 2004. It has been revolutionizing the entire corporate world. Awareness about the concepts and the needs, the access to availability of these services, affordability is another key parameter. It has to be drastically lower priced than the next competitive goods or service available in the market. Sometimes 100th, 150th kind of price you have to look at. And the ability to scale up when the need comes. These are the fundamentals of the theory he proposes, whether you involve the large corporations or anybody else. And this is the first thought. The second thought, which came from Professor Muhammad Yunus, who got, as you all know, a Nobel Prize in 1998. And his famous book, which says that creating world without poverty. And you know, he got Nobel Prize for his work on poverty and famine, poverty and removing the poverty from below, as he calls it. He came up with the concept of microfinancing. 2,000 rupees, 3,000 rupees, if you can give to a small individual, they have the inherent potential and they can create livelihood for themselves. And he says, this kind of social business, it marries the interest of larger corporations with economic development. It doesn't come in conflict with this. Again, he talks about something like an alignment which C.K. Prahlad talks about. He does not want the abolition of capitalism, but he says capitalism has to be enlightened. It has to take care of the marginalized ones, the ones who do not have the wherewithal, who do not have the capital. And I think, again, he says it is not in conflict with this, and is referring to the corporate social responsibility to be shouldered by larger corporations. He's pointing at that. Even though microfinancing as a concept has attracted a lot of criticism and success has been partial in some parts of the world and more prominent in other parts of the world, I think that can be blamed not to the concept, but I think the governance system which exists in those countries. And if the governance system can ensure it, it's one of the most significant thought which has evolved in last 20-25 years. The third thought, which was given by another Nobel laureate, 1998 was the Nobel Prize of Amartya Sen, and 2006 was Muhammad Yunus. My mistake, forgot the dates. So Amartya Sen, he says that the welfare should be measured not in terms of how much income we have, but what are one's capabilities. And he talked about capabilities in the individual, particularly in the sector which can be called as poor. His entire work for which he got Nobel Prize was on famine and poverty. He says consequences should also consider morality of the process, like fairness and individual agency. When the criticism was attracted, he tried to defend that morality is something inbuilt. The ethics is inbuilt, the values are inbuilt, and capability approach has global local character. Even though you look at the global concept of entrepreneurship, he says if you go to the lower level, it's equally applicable. It's applicable across political systems, across social and cultural borders. Now, why I mentioned these three profound concepts which have evolved in last about quarter of a century. If we can look at all the three together, as an academic institution, as a university, can we develop a system? Can we develop a model of the education which can create an ecosystem which can help them discharge the responsibility in a more effective way, which can cause social good in a more profound way? And is there an integrated understanding of the above being applied by us, being used by us as we deliver on the social responsibilities we have? And I think it is the integration and the sophistication of these thoughts which should lead to further research, further academic debate, and see how we can create this kind of teaching learning processes at the grassroots level. I'm now gradually coming to what happens in the classroom and what happens outside the door of the classroom. I'll gradually come there, and how we have incorporated all these in the story of our Jan 2.0, which we have recently launched. Even I've not been able to talk to our students in details about it, thanks to a pandemic, but we have been talking about it for almost last 8 to 9 months, and we have discussed it threadbare. The implementation plan is there, and as the session starts from 1st September, we are launching this to the full extent when the new batch is coming. Two concepts of my last 10 years, which I'll present today. And the first one, which I developed around 2017-18. And I used to work with a university in Uttar Pradesh, and I proposed this concept of SCIZ. SCIZ is Skills, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation Zones. And I was motivated to develop this concept when I looked at Hubli Sandbox in Karnataka. It's an innovation center, which later on set up another center in Telangana, Kakatia Sandbox, and I set up, I think, 4 to 5 in some of the US universities. In India, they've not been working with the university, but later on, support came from the local universities there, and it has done something remarkable, which this country needs, which the teaching learning process needs in our institutions. And this sandbox has 4 critical things we need to look at. And first one is as an enabler. And when you talk about enablers, social enterprise is the grassroots. The bottom of the pyramid, the local people, is at the grassroots. The skills and capabilities need to be developed by academic institution, and that's where you create solutions. You engage with the local communities. You engage with civil society around the institutions, and see that how you can create solutions using local resources. And this I did in Western Uttar Pradesh in one of the universities operational, and few others are trying to implement. My recommendation to the Ministry of Education and NSDC was that can we sponsor one SCIZ in each of the universities? Initial capital could come from there, and after the first round of funding, the university will find, the SCIZ will find its own funding as it becomes profitable and financially viable. And finally, it leads to innovation. Friends, when I designed this, I kept in mind the National Agriculture Policy of 2011, which talks about concepts like FPO, farm producers organizations kind of concepts, which was one of the ways to stop the plight of educated youth from rural areas to metropolitan cities. And this was with the aim of solving multiple problems of increasing population of metropolitan cities where the infrastructure was not able to sustain, and the rural areas were, I think, denied the development it deserves. In recent times, we have seen many such examples where people have set up businesses in rural areas. And this was also motivated by one of the programs of our late President, Dr. Abdul Kalam, when he launched PURA, PURA, providing urban amenities in rural areas. Somewhere at the back of his mind, he said, if we can provide these amenities in the rural areas, there's no need for the youth to run towards the metropolitan cities, and there will be balanced growth all across the country, irrespective of whether you are urban or rural. And this thought also led to increased urbanization when the townships were developed away from metropolitan cities. And you see in last 15 to 20 years, what has happened is that we definitely see economic activity happening in those areas. For example, in Western Uttar Pradesh, many of the small enterprises were based on sugarcane-based industries, on the waste of sugarcane industry, which could be processed further, and primarily agri-based. And in one university, when I was working on implementing this project, 78 projects went alive. with the help of one of the technology business incubator, which was funded by MSME. And all of them are at advanced stage, many of them almost certified as a small startup. Now, three things which, if you look at on the left-hand side, are essential for this kind of SAIZ, which is motivated by a sandbox, which I call it a living lab, and which truly returns the power of learning to the learners. It's taken out of the hands of the teachers. I think that's the real transformation I propose, I recommend when I talk about teaching learning interventions in academic institutions, and which will lead to a larger social good than what we've been able to achieve so far. It presumes scalability, price, modern technologies, and international standards are non-negotiable. It's something like using the best of the world to create local solutions and create local products and make them go global. I think that's what our Honorable Prime Minister called for when he said, be vocal about local in the context of Atmanirbhar Bharat. It is so relevant and so much doable, in fact. And this kind of academic concept supports this idea. We need to create ecosystem, collaborate and co-create and build a nodal organization, and which are more important than investment capacity. And this nodal organization I proposed was the SAIZ in each university. Capacity building can be done. There are many universities across the globe which travel to the rural areas and train the people there. You don't have to really ask them to come to the university. And thanks to online, I think it has become rather easy today. And blended learning is going to be the future. It's not going to go away, whether pandemic or no pandemic. So friends, this was one concept which I would recommend some of you to seriously think about. And maybe in the same way or modified way and refined way, you should try to look at implementing in the universities, which I believe will lead to discharging the social responsibilities in a more effective way. The second, I'll take the case of our own Jain team to the university. And we have decided 5 pillars of education philosophy as we undertake this journey called Jain 2.0. All 5 are indicated here. And I'll try to explain how each pillar of the philosophy represents contribution to social responsibility by the university. Global benchmark, local relevance. I did point towards this when I talked about SAIZ concept. We need to leverage technology and create differentiation in our offerings compared to the rest of the universities. And it's extremely important because online means the contents are available freely flowing from one place to another. Differentiation becomes difficult, but it remains a key differentiator. The third one is co-creation. We, as a university, a time has come where we need to cohabit with the industry, co-create and co-own curriculum. Time has come when company offices have to open in university campuses and university offices have to open in company's offices or company premises. It's that kind of co-creation. Remaining at a distance will just not work. And if we do not do this, the industry and other type of organizations will create these contents and we will be simply looking at them like onlookers, like bypasses. I did highlight research has to be linked to innovation and practice. And most importantly, to enable all this, we need to curate an organizational culture. We can't allow the organizational culture to evolve as it is left freely. I think we need to evolve by design. We need to intervene. We need to shape it and shape it on daily basis, hourly basis, and minute-to-minute basis. And this becomes one of the most difficult but most important pillar of sustaining this kind of teaching learning process with an eye on the 3 important things which I mentioned in the beginning: creating professionally competent, socially sensible, and socially sensitive individuals in the society. Let me see how we are operationalizing it. Look at the 5 pillars and how it is linked to social responsibility being discharged. First one, when I say global benchmarks and local relevance, we need to find solution to the local issues using global frameworks. the best technologies to be used to find solutions. And it says, while we benchmark with them, we need to be constantly remaining locally relevant. And therefore, the emphasis is on finding applications in solving the day-to-day problems of a society and community, and then make them of the standard, of the scale, wherein we market them, we provide them to the entire world. The second one is leveraging technology to harness potential of youth and differentiate. How it leads to social responsibility? We contain migration to metros and contribute to development of local areas, which was reflected in my concept, which I presented. I think the need is to devise models which are sustainable, which can achieve all these conflicting at times objectives in one go, because more initiatives you take, more difficult it is to integrate them. The third one, co-creation, solopreneurship, entrepreneurship, and economic well-being at the bottom of pyramid will be created if we co-create with industry and find solutions to this. Research in priority areas has been taken and devising solutions to problems of community. Now, these areas are the ones which have maximum significance for the society and the nations. Those areas of research should be emphasized, whether at the student level or the faculty level. And finally, the curated culture leads to inculcation of values in everyone, students, faculty, staff, everyone from top to bottom, which leads to social sensibilities and sensitivities. Let me give one example. It was 2010-11, we were working with one of the NGOs in our university. We had almost adopted this NGO, and their students used to come as volunteers from foreign universities. And one of the girls from University of Edinburgh was interning there. And we interacted, and she said, this NGO was basically serving the orphans. And the children, about 90 plus children who were there from 3 years age to 18 years of age, had been subjected to all kinds of abuses in the world. And she said, sir, when I go back to my university, I want to do something for these kids. And students, I'm giving an idea how some of the institutionalized mechanisms of the universities can lead to larger goods. So what she did when she went back to her university, she launched a campaign and she called upon the youth from all over the world and said, at so-and-so time, so-and-so day, all of you have to reach Paris. And the condition is, you don't have to borrow money from your parents. And whatever you mobilize, reach there, and whatever you save will donate to one of the NGOs in India. And this campaign went on for 28 days to be more precise in 2012-13. And friends, she sent a check of 30 lakhs rupees to this NGO. I'm witness to this. A simple idea, no donation, no mobilization, or no inviting the donations. I think it was an idea which was converted into the form of project, and they met at Paris for some academic purpose for a conference, and rest is a history, as I said. This was a simple idea which could be part of this culture. In India, we have been lagging behind as far as the culture of volunteering is concerned, culture of giving is concerned. If you can make it as a part of the system, I'm sure.
So sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Sir, your screen is frozen, sir. We cannot see you. Yes, sir.
It's still frozen?
No, sir, your screen where you are talking, we cannot see you talking.
Okay, okay. But you can see my pic.
Yes, we can see your slides. Yes.
All right, thank you. So I think the pic is enough. Slides are more important right now. You can hear me at least, you know. This is how these 5 pillars of our teaching, learning, intervention are going to lead to social responsibility, as I see. And to do this, we have created an overarching model. I'll call it not pedagogy, but andragogy, which each of the students, no matter which discipline they belong to, is going to undertake during their stay at Jain Dean to the university. And that's what you can see this diagram clearly. It is called transdisciplinary project-centric learning, which is a copyrighted concept. It's very simple. I'll just take 2 minutes in explaining this. Let us say on the extreme left, there are 7 courses or 6 courses being taught in a semester or in a term. And you undertake a project along with the 6 courses as the 7th course. And this project is supported by the knowledge and skills of all these courses. If you look at this convergence, and when these courses converge to support one idea, which is a real life idea, the learning opportunities get expanded here. A prerequisite to attain higher order learning outcomes, students, is to have learning opportunities being created. It is this convergence of multiple courses, including your previous knowledge of schools or previous semesters, will support this real life idea. And it being a group project, the collective knowledge and skills of all these students will be there to work on these real life projects. And these real life projects, according to me, will lead to 3 primary outcomes. One, a patentable idea on the extreme right, if you look at. Some will lead to startup if they have commercial value. Some can even be startup without patenting. And the worst outcome, I believe, will be a good quality publication. We aim that every student, irrespective of the level, irrespective of which discipline they belong to, should be involved in research. My view is also that as a university, we need only not at the PhD or master's level, but even at undergraduate level, students undertaking research and involving in publication. And indirectly, we serve almost every objective of a regulatory framework, including national education policy. We attain higher order learning outcomes. We become inter and transdisciplinary and not single discipline, as has been indicated that affiliated colleges should go. And by 2024, friends, single discipline institutions have to go. You must have seen one of the leading IIMs in a country is starting a 4-year degree in humanities this year onwards, because they are responding to big changes. And that's where the learning opportunities will expand for them also. It is in line with the national and international missions. And most importantly, it will enhance the local appeal. So this one overarching concept, we've been able to achieve multiple objectives, direct as well as indirect, which support in the outcomes of universities. And all this have been integrated into the teaching, learning, and evaluation plan of each course, which students will be given on day 1, and they will start working on this concept and hope that this leads to the outcome. And this has also been in line with the vision of our chancellor who spoke yesterday when he talked about thousands and thousands of entrepreneurship being created. Friends, I'm mindful of the fact that not everybody who starts this will become an entrepreneur or will own an enterprise. But I'm sure of one thing, that each one of these students will become enterprising and hence more employable. And indirectly, we solve the problem or the chorus which has been rising for the last decade or so, that we are accused of producing less employable or unemployable people. I think we will be able to overcome that problem completely, and a larger percentage compared to 3% of the world average. I think we should be able to push it to 5%, 7%, 10%, 15% over a period of time. I have absolutely no doubt that this concept will work, because my previous concept has already started bearing the fruit. And I'm sure this one will be equally effective. This is like a self-updating software, where the projects will be taken on the most contemporary topics. Tomorrow, we see that green frontier industry sectors are going to expand as the markets become more and more sophisticated. And there's a huge call on the university system to give innovation to the market, that we can deal with this kind of scenario emerging. And it also indicates that the clusters of research which we decide should be in the emerging areas like this. And we can keep on deciding this year after year, semester after semester, what should be the areas of research we undertake. And therefore, we will remain contemporary all through. So this is what I had to present. I believe that we can make very, very effective intervention teaching learning process, so that we are able to deliver on the social responsibility expectations to us. Thank you for patiently listening to me. And I think I'll take any questions if anybody may have.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your enriching insights on what role education, and to be very precise, higher education is about to play in social responsibility, and how education would act as a catalyst of change in the contemporary and coming days. We have a few questions from the students. Chavi, you can ask your question.
Dear sir, my question is, the pandemic has caused a sudden shift in every field. So sir, could you please enlighten us on the role of education and social responsibility in these difficult times?
While the social responsibility has been always important, I think it's only more important in the current era. And pandemic, on one hand, has forced us to innovate the way we deliver education, maintaining the quality. On the other hand, it has also forced us to find solutions in the post-pandemic era. Thanks to the acceptance and effective implementation of online learning, three segments which were underserved or unserved will now be better served as far as education is concerned. One, we will be able to reach the unreached, people who could never imagine earning degrees of the quality we are talking about. It will now be possible. The second innovation which will happen is reaching those people who can't afford to leave their jobs. You know what has happened post-pandemic, many have already lost their jobs, many are trying to secure their jobs. But most importantly, the skill set they will require in times to come will be entirely different from what they have had in the past. And to upskill, without being able to leave the jobs, they'll need to upskill them. And this is where the education, particularly online mode, will become very, very important for them. And the third thing, which is a trend all over the world, which is happening, many of you must have read, National University of Singapore has made it mandatory to have their enrollment number valid for 20 years, and not only for 3 years or 4 years they remain, which means universities have to go beyond the program duration and take the responsibility of continuous education programs of their alumni. And I think the models which are emerging, particularly in the blended learning mode, will serve it as never before. And there are just 3 examples. Many more examples can be taken. We in the full-time regular degree programs, while a theory part or the simpler part has been relegated to online, synchronous, asynchronous learning, for which you don't have to come to the college, you will be largely involved in the activities which I just mentioned, wherein the learning will be more sound, you'll be able to attain higher order learning outcomes and provide better solutions to the society and the community.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Kirtana. Kirtana, you can please ask your question.
Oh, ma'am, since Kirtana is not there, I will be asking the question. So, sir, we easily agree on what we should change or improve or support in education today, but it is so difficult to make sustainable changes. So what are the most common reasons why educational reforms fail, and what relevant studies do we have on this topic?
Fantastic. You know, in academic institutions, I can vouch for last 27 years I have been in this, okay? One, that the reforms come in very slow. And when the reforms come in or reforms are announced, we as professors are even slower in adopting them or implementing them. To give an example, 2014 August, the University Grants Commission said that everybody has to implement choice-based credit system from 2015 onwards. I can count universities even today, they don't have any choice-based credit system. It's been already about 7 years. And by the time you implement them, the environment causes few other changes. Particularly what we've seen in last 5 to 6 years and last 1.5 years during the pandemic is unthinkable. The speed at which changes have come in, and we were so slow in implementation. And this, as if this was not enough, the new national education policy was announced. And if that was not enough, we are trying to decipher what this policy talks about. 4 days ago, Academic Bank of Credit has been announced. You know, Academic Bank of Credit, let me give some idea. And the model which I just proposed to you I said this is like a self-grading, upgrading software. The type of projects batch after batch you will be working on will be the most contemporary, which is happening at that time. You don't have to wait for a reform to be implemented in the university. This model, according to me, is going to be sustainable for decades to come, because the type of projects only will change. Suppose tomorrow green revolution comes and you'll take projects from that area. Technology related things are happening, you'll take projects from that area. Or tomorrow, let's say the local entrepreneurship or rural entrepreneurship comes in, you will take projects from that area. There's nothing which stops you from remaining contemporary on an ongoing basis. Now, this academic bank of credit, you must know as a university, you are supposed to do it. You enroll with one university and open an account with something called Academic Bank of Credit, which is established by Government of India. When you join a university, to give your account number to the university, like when we join a job, we give bank account number to transfer our salary. Same way, you will give this Academic Bank of Credit's bank account number. As and you earn your credit units, the university has to first become member of this and keep on depositing your credits in the bank account which you have given to this. And once you find that sufficient number of credits have been earned, for example, minimum credits as in today for undergraduate program is 120 for a pass course. For honors course, it's around 135, 136, different units for different programs. When you find that I have sufficient number of credit units, you can go to the university and say, sir or madam, these are my credit units. I want to redeem these credit units. And they have to accept and give a degree. They can only deny you if you do not have credits from a particular specialization. And then the answer to you, for you is that, well, I don't want a specialization in marketing or finance. Give me a degree in liberal studies. And you get a degree, and these are irrevocably redeemed. This is going to change the entire landscape of education this year onwards. It has been made mandatory. In fact, I have already received a letter, please become a member of the Academic Bank of Credit. However, only A and above grades are eligible to be members of this Academic Bank of Credit. Just a glimpse of this. Now, these kind of changes, they agree with you. These are far-reaching, but the implementation takes a lot of time. And that has been one of the problems. I think the regulatory frameworks which prevailed did not force us. I think now new education policy says the control will be light but very tight. Fewer controls, but if you do not follow that, well, you have difficult time to come in fact. So I think implementation is the key. I agree with you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a question from our HOD, Professor Sunita BK. Sunita ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Baishaki. Good evening, sir. Very insightful session, as always. Sir, I have one question. Do you think the new educational policy and the Academic Bank of Credit implementation in rural areas is a challenge? And do you think the urban universities should take an initiative to include even the rural students into the framework? That don't you think so? That is bigger social responsibility, because most of the rural students have escaped all the benefits probably what an urban student gets.
I think I did point out the blended learning means we'll have face-to-face as well as online education being imparted. I can clearly foresee a few things happening. One, the universities and institutions becoming larger. Now, there could be a physical limitation that a university can't shift the land or piece of land to a particular place and go closer to another university if they can't become a university themselves. I can clearly foresee consortia emerging of the institutions and universities, even though this requires some other regulatory changes, but I'm sure this will happen to facilitate. For example, already the regulatory framework says that medical college could happen in 3 campuses within 10 kilometers. University could have another campus, contiguous campus within certain distance. All these things are already happening. Now, once that happens, it will not be difficult for us to integrate into the consortium universities which are in maybe rural or semi-rural areas. Same thing will happen, universities which already exist there in the vicinity, they will look at all the institutions and universities. I must share, in 2017, I was heading a university in Haryana. We were called by the chief minister and we were instructed that adopt 5 government colleges in your vicinity and train their teachers in the new ways of teaching learning. And we did it, in fact. Now, this was by instruction. Now, this will happen voluntarily. And the second thing is that the institutions located in these areas will have access to courses of no matter which university you talk about, Indian or foreigner. They can take those courses online. Our own Indian MOOC called SWAM, which is Government of India portal, which offers courses free of cost. If you match the timings, you can earn courses free of cost and earn credits. This is applicable to everyone, in fact. It just requires internet connection, a mobile phone number, and email ID. You can access and create your account if the institution, of course, is registered with the SWAM. And you will find that more and more such online courses being available to students as we go along. The differentiation, of course, will command the premium depending on which course you want. And if you don't offer those courses, students will go to another institution, in fact. So I think we are compelled to be innovative on an ongoing basis as universities. But rural area universities, in fact, will be better served, according to me. And the universities like us, we will have to reach out to them. I'm very happy to announce that recently we have given 1,000 scholarships, thanks to our honorable chairman, to students of Karnataka, wherever they come from, who lost someone among the parents in the COVID. And these 1,000 students will be offered completely free online degrees from J&D into the university. And we have a scheme where we're reaching out to a few other states also, where we can extend this. I think for me, these are the examples of social responsibility in an academic institution like us. And this has been facilitated by online degrees, which have been awarded to universities which are top ranked and highly graded as per the NAC. 37 universities in this country have been allowed to offer online degrees this March. We're one of them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for clarifying our participants' doubts through your in-depth knowledge. It's indeed been a pleasure to listen to your wonderful session. And I'm sure our participants would have taken back a lot from your engaging discussion. You enlightened us with your profound thoughts and innovative ideas of teaching learning process, bringing an innovation in the academic field for the betterment of our students and the society at large. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for being such a patient listener. Students, particularly you all, I don't have enough words to thank you for what you have put up. And I think all attention of the university is keeping you all in mind, and you will be the ultimate beneficiary of whatever you're trying to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Chancellor, Dr. Chainraj Roychan, Pro-Chancellor, Dr. N. Sundararajan, Chancellor Dr. Raj Singh, Registrar Dr. N.V.H. Krishnan, Director Academic and Planning Professor Sridhara Murthy, Director Center for Management Studies, Chain Dean to be University, Dr. Dinesh Neelkan, for their heartfelt encouragement and support for the success of this event. I also would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Mr. Arup Kumar Chatterjee, for bringing us favorable insights on she economy and how women could be focused in the economy and the society. Thank you very much, everyone. Over to Dr. Shiva.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you once again, everyone, for joining us for the second day of Research Summit. I request all participants to stay with us for all upcoming 7 days for lots more to explore and learn from our great eminent speakers. For tomorrow, day 3, we have with us the legendary speakers, Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus as our chief guest, conferring his views on the topic, social responsibility with ethical leadership, and Mr. P.K. Gupta, global CTO and global architect lead, global alliances for Dell EMC, delivering his talk on the topic, emerging technology trends in various industries, research and career opportunities in data era. Requesting all of you to stay tuned throughout, as it's mandatory to fill feedback form for all sessions to receive certificate. Tomorrow, we are going to begin with the session at 7:30 p.m. sharp with our very first speaker, requesting all of you to log in 15 minutes prior to the session. See you all tomorrow at 7:15 p.m. Have a great time. Thank you.
Thank you.